was a Scot. My mom's not yet. That's amazing. How do you get around that? Are they adamant towards the English, or is that kind of worn off now in this day and age?
I mean, it's funny. It's funny. It's like nobody really likes England, neither Scotland or Ireland really care for them.
Scotland, especially.
Yeah, but honestly, as far as the King James Bible, I didn't run into it at all.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, if anything, they hold to the fact that their king was the one who proposed it.
Mm-hmm.
Because King James was a Scottish king first. Was it 5th or 6th? He was the 6th. He was King James the 6th of Scotland. And then he was a cousin, so that's kind of interesting. It's good that you asked. It's a good question, because what happened is, when he was cousin to the Queen, and there's a really interesting story about this whole thing, because she was dying, and everyone was wondering who she was going to hand it to, and she wouldn't tell anybody. She knew who she wanted to, and she handed that thing. She slowly did it, and on her deathbed, she handed it over to King James, and that fella came over. Now listen. I'll throw this. This is free. There's this secular stuff out there, and I'm sure you know this if you're going to a church with the name King James on the title. But we live in a world that has done its very best to throw down and to make fun of that king. And I don't get it, because that guy was a great king. You look at the stuff he did politically, even. I'm not even spiritually. The guy, for one thing, the guy was partially genius. When you consider the fact that kid, whenever he was like 5 years old, I can't remember if it was 5 or 7, the guy could speak Greek and Latin and English. Wow. And then by the age of 10 years old, he could translate from Greek to Latin to English. He would do all three. He'd go from one to the third. I mean, that's smarter than any translator today. So these guys that make fun of him, and then they say stuff like he's queer. That blows my mind, man. There ain't a stitch of proof that shows that thing. If anything, the only thing that showed, there are people that say, oh, King James, he was a sodomite. No way, man. When you actually look at what he was, you realize that he made enemies because he was a good king. And after his death, men were coming around going, oh, he was messing around. He was doing stuff. So get out of here. So anyway, I'm getting off topic. At the end of the day, no, if anything, they prefer it. If you run into them, that's what they want. They don't want to use American new versions. They say, we've always had the best one. So it's, and then I think she might have said it, the girl Fizz, she's from a town where the whole King James thing was proposed in Scotland, in a town called Burn Island. They proposed the thing there, and then he wasn't the king yet, and then when he became the king, he said, we need to make this thing happen. So anyway.
There's another part of that question. I know that Ireland was predominantly Catholic, and they have fighting still to this day, I think.
They'd rather split on it.
Is it really, do you have that type of adamancy in Scotland as well? Has it rubbed off in Scotland? What's going on in Ireland?
No, not really. But honestly, Ireland has its own thing, because they got this almost 50-50 thing where they're like, we're Protestant, we're Catholic, and they fight each other on it. Whereas Scotland never had the Catholic influence that Ireland did. And so they had...
The Romans couldn't get up into the Highlands.
Yeah, they fought them, man. They killed them. We went to one of the castles. This one castle was just wiped out and destroyed. And right after John Knox's mentor died, John Knox and a bunch of his buddies, a bunch of warriors, went in there and they held that castle against thousands of Catholics. And they held it for a long time, and they finally got beaten. And a bunch of them were put on those slave ships. Ever see Ben-Hur, where they're like rowing? He was put on a slave ship, but they fought it. They fought the thing and fought the thing. In fact, when you go there in the 1680s, so after the King James Bible, after 1611, in the 1680s, it's called the Killing Times. And in Scotland, if you hear a lot of martyr stories and you don't know where it's from, chances are they're connected to Scotland. I can't tell you, growing up, I'd hear all these stories, and a preacher would tell a story, wouldn't name the country, just tell an illustration about somebody. I remember Brother Donovan told an illustration about 2 little girls, and how they were 2 little girls, they were sisters, and one of them, when they wouldn't recant, they killed their family. And when these 2 little girls, one was 16, one was 13, when they would not recant, the Catholics took them out to the sea and put one way out in the tide, the older one, and tied her to a post and let the water come up, and had that older one watch her drown, and she's going, don't recant, don't turn on the Lord like this. And whenever the water took her and she died, that 13-year-old, the priest came up and said, will you recant now? Will you turn against it now? And she said, nope, he's done too much for me. I didn't even know who that was from. I went over there, found their memorial, and was reading it. And they're like heroes now. And so even my I have an ancestor. I'm guessing he's a Campbell. The Earl of Argyll Campbell. He was a nobleman, And in the 1680s, that Catholic king that was in Scotland was telling him, "You have no king but me." And he goes, "I have no king but Jesus." And a nobleman was put in the castle in Edinburgh. I was in the room. It's this little bitty room, no bigger than this. And there was a plaque on the wall. And that plaque, it said, this was the last night's sleep for the Earl of Argyll Campbell. And he slept soundly and went to the death defiant to the end. And he was a Protestant, he was saved, and whenever he went to that place, this is a funny story, when anyone was killed, whenever they were martyred, they were given a few minutes to say something, because they're about to die. So if they were going to be hung, they'd climb up the ladder and they'd preach, and they would preach for a real long time because they didn't want to get hung, you know?
Yeah,
or if they were going to be burned at the stake, they'd stand up there. I think he actually, I think he was being hung, and he climbed up, and he starts preaching, and I was reading, Dane had the book, and I was reading his whole thing. He has this huge sermon, and finally they're like, all right, you got to shut up. But while he's preaching, he's pointing out at some of the kids saying, he goes, I'm going to die. He goes, you think that I've got it bad? You've got it bad. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember the exact wording. He's like, you have hell to pay. I'm going to heaven after this. Hang me up like this. So anyway,
Wow,
I'm just
Amen.
it's pretty interesting.
yeah. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
How is the situation in Europe? I haven't been there in a long time. With the Muslims coming in.
There are a lot of Muslims there. Yep, there are a lot more in England, but there are a lot in Scotland even. We see them a lot. In fact, when you look on there in 2011, there are more Muslims than there were Jehovah's Witness, Mormon, Pentecostal, Charismatic, Baptist, more than just of one religion, just the Muslims.
Wow.
And now in England, it's ridiculous. It's just there. It's just everywhere. There's tons and tons of them. Scotland is a little bit more nationalistic. So even though they're super duper liberal and socialist, you can tell they have this fight against it, like, we don't want them here. But there are a lot of them. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of them.
Are these Scottish people that are Muslim? Or
No,
are they
no,
just
no.
people who've traveled?
In fact, that's one of the reasons. The truth is, the reason that this whole thing that's been going on this past few weeks about Europe and the UK separating, one of the biggest reasons is because they're sick of scum coming across. I'm not just talking about Muslim. There are plenty of others that are coming across, and they're just bad for the economy. They're just killing things and I mean they take jobs. The thing is, it's just like here.
Yeah.
I mean, in a lot of ways, but they just finally decided to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway. Anything else? Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Well, how free is it, the gospel to be preached? I mean, like California, your schools, there's so many rules about where you can and cannot.
Sure.
Canada, you can't teach about Leviticus or
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Well, that's actually a super good question. I was actually going to mention it even if you guys didn't ask, because a lot of times I do get asked. But as far as even preaching on queers and stuff, if you do it in the street, they take you to jail instantly. If you say sodomite, if you say queer, if you even mention homosexuality in a bad light, it's hate speech. They put you in jail. Maybe just for the night. You get out. It's not a big deal. But, I mean, obviously going to jail's
It's a big
not
deal.
like going home, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's not like they're going to put you in prison like a social, some kind of communist camp. But what you do is you just have to be real careful, which I hate that. I'm a Bible believer. I want to go preach on what I want to preach on. I want to preach on sin. But the key is just to keep it a little more vague. And when you preach, just
it
preach
general.
on sin. You know what I'm saying? I don't feel like I'm having to backslide or I'm compromising if I point to a homosexual and say your sin's going to put you in hell. He knows what you know what I'm saying? He knows what he's doing is wrong. I don't have to say anything about it. He knows. But I know Dane is real smart with them. If they come, he had some lesbian woman, freak, whatever, come up to him and say, hey, what do you believe about homosexuality? And he goes, what I believe is in Romans chapter 1. And she's like, what does it say? And he had on that table, so he just grabbed a Bible, turned it to her and said, just read Romans 1. And she sat there and read the whole chapter. And she came back and goes, oh, I don't get it. I didn't see anything. I don't know what it is. He's like, well, it's there. Read it
That's
again.
what I believe in.
Yeah, he's like, read it again. So she read it twice. That's probably more Bible than she's read in her whole life, you know?
Yeah.
So that's one way to go about it. As far as preaching, what's really nice is the open air thing is a big deal. It's hard to get into places like prisons, and that's something I would love to do is go preach in some prisons. It's real hard to get into them. As far as schools and stuff, I don't think it's as hard as it is here, because they actually, I don't think they're as bad about it as America is. I only say that from, I know some real good preachers who have gone over and been able to get into some schools. I'm not sure the whole story. But yeah, the biggest thing is just being real careful about homosexuality, because they'll take it. I mean, I know guys that have been taken to jail like right off the bat. They just come up and say, all right, come on, you said, it's hate speech, so. Anyway, yes ma'am.
So are they going through that whole transgender phase? Like,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's as bad as here, California. I mean, 'cause I know if you go to Kansas, it's probably not as bad as it is here. You know what I'm saying, or something like that. Anyway, yeah. Oh, it's real bad. It's real bad. If you go there, there are tons of them. They're everywhere. Which is, what's weird to me is when you think Scotland, you think of Braveheart. I know that's not a good thing, and I know it's a wicked movie, but you think of like tough guys and long red hair and killing people and stuff. And somehow, man, they're like Benjamites. If you go back in the Bible, those Benjamites, they were queer, but they were like vicious fighters. And like it's almost like that. Like they're just, the only person who actually was getting really upset with me when I was preaching, I was street preaching, and I have the video on my computer. I'm sitting here preaching. I've got my hand in my pocket, just real laid back. I'm just preaching like this, and this woman, whatever it was just screaming behind me. And I just was laughing. I was like, whatever, okay, I'm just gonna keep reading. And she was losing it, man. So as far as that, yeah, they're just real, it's weird. But what's funny is for all that, for all the negative, the other side of it is they'll talk to you. The other side of it is when you're yelling on the street, when you yell in America, they're like, why are they yelling? Over there, it's been in their culture for 500 years, man. Street preaching has been in their culture for so long. They hear street preachers and they go, oh, there's a preacher. Like, it just makes sense to them. They don't think fanatic. They think, oh, there's a preacher. He's doing what he's supposed to do. You know what I mean? And when you do it here, they're like, you are a nut, moron. What are you doing? And we are. I get that.
Amen.
amen.
All right. Anything else?
When is Katie due?
December.
Oh.
Yeah, and I think we're going to have the baby in Florida, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because all our meeting's going to be out there, and so instead of Colorado, I know that means nothing to anybody else, but yeah, in Florida. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I read somewhere there was a Baptist union in Scotland. Is there?
A Baptist union?
Yeah.
Not that I know of. There very well could be. In fact, what I know about as far as Baptists go in Scotland, Baptist missionaries, they're real soft, like real softies. They don't do any kind of street work. I mean, when I say street work, I understand that street preaching is controversial, but like they don't even go pass out tracts. They don't even do that kind of thing. I mean, they're like, when they go out there, they go and like they have. There's like one picture at the end of us at a door, like stuffing door stuff in. Yeah. They don't have mailboxes there like we do. They like when you take something in, you just put it through a slit in the door and it goes right into their house. Which to me I hate, but for some reason they're socialists. So like, if someone came up to my door and shoved stuff in my house, I'd be like, get out of here, right? But over there, they're so used to not having private property, like that means nothing to them. They can't have guns. There's no guns over there. So all that stuff, like they're very much, when you think about it, they're just very much, they're just used to it. They're just like, oh, don't matter. It's like this. Dane was saying that when he first got there, they come and knock on your door. He opened the door and the person walked in, and they were from the government. And he was like, whoa, what are you doing? They're like, we're checking your TV. He's like, whoa. And they just kept going. He was like, he followed him in like, okay, I don't know. He was new. He didn't know what he was doing. Yeah. They have a TV tax. If you have a TV plugged in your house, they tax it. And everyone gets free TV for it. Which, I mean, not free TV. It's just tax. You see what I'm saying? Everyone gets TV if you have it plugged in your house. So if they come in, you just hide it really fast or something like this. But yeah, so it's weird. Like, for example, in Scotland, they have this thing where if you're homeless, I can sleep anywhere I want for 3 days. So you'll just go outside and they're just camped out on your just right there on your yard. I would be like, no, get out of here. I'll hurt you. Get out of here, man. You know what I mean? Like, and they're allowed 3 days, and then they'll just get to the next yard, and they just do this, man. Wow. So it's just they're not used. They don't have like their own stuff. Does that make sense? Like it's not like here. Like we're real big private property, and like I can put up signs, no trespassing. But that's nothing there. People walk across people's property all the time. It's just it's part of being socialist. Anyway.
So what is I don't know, that's scary. What's gonna be free, like, for you to do? Or, okay, so medical is socialized?
Yeah,
Socialized?
yeah, so some of that is, I mean, in a way it's positive because I don't have to do anything for it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you're there, they'll take
Like-
care of you. But I mean, you just gotta wait. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I get that. I get that there are two sides to the thing. You know what I'm saying? I understand that that means, oh, well, everyone gets it and I don't have to do anything for it. That's what most people are saying. That's what people will say, yeah. But the thing is, it always costs. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
mean to get political here. I'm not trying to. I'm just talking about like
Mark
Scotland.
lost.
It's okay. We're not 501c3. Go
Yeah.
for it.
I mean, what's funny is for what everybody says about bad about Obamacare is the reason my wife was able to be treated for cancer. So I have to be like, I have to kind of back up and be like, well, thank you, Lord. Just take it as from the Lord, not from you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that was a huge help to us. So I understand the negatives of it too. Anyway,
Right.
I don't know why I'm talking about this.
Does it ever get warm there?
It does. Yeah, I know you guys are from here. I'm from Colorado. It's not near as cold as Colorado.
Oh, okay.
Colorado's cold, and most coldest I ever see it get there is -40. It is cold. I was just up in Alaska, and I know I'm getting off topic. They said it's -60. And you go out with a cup of coffee and you throw it in the air and it doesn't come down. I was like, no, thank you. No, it just evaporates.
Did a winter in North Dakota work up there, so.
Okay, you know what I'm talking, yeah. So Scotland is just, honestly, man, when we were there, I thought it was nice. I'm cold-blooded, warm-blooded, I don't know. My wife gets cold everywhere.
But the ocean.
Yeah, part of it's
Cold.
that. You know what's weird about it is, some people don't know this. This is a side note that's not like a spiritual thing, but they're on the same latitude as Nome, Alaska.
Yeah.
So it does a similar thing as Alaska as far as the summers and the winters at night. So like during the summer, the sun is up. I mean, like the sun doesn't go down till 11 and it comes up at 3 in the morning. But then in the winter time, it goes down at like 4 and it doesn't come up until 9. So that's kind of a weird thing. So then that doesn't help with the cold and stuff. But honestly, it was really nice. I don't mind the rain and stuff, so I had a good time with it. So super green, very pretty.
So the church is on, Edinburgh is where you're going to be, right?
No, Edinburgh is the capital. Oh, I didn't say this. I normally say this. It's in Glasgow. The biggest city is where the church is.
So that street that you were preaching on, that's like their main street?
Yeah, that's one of the main streets. Yeah, and what's really cool about it is, I think I was talking maybe with you a little bit ago, that there's like no cars on that street. And they have cobblestone streets that are like 50 yards wide, and it's just for foot traffic. And it's just like street preacher's dream, man.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh my gosh, I found my home, you know.
And so the church is on that street?
Yeah, it's just like down the block a little ways. We walk up and found some stairs and use it as the pulpit. So yeah, they just have they do a hotel like this. So. Anything else? A lot of good questions. I'm sometimes in churches of like 200 or 300 people and nobody will ask a question. Is everyone just tapped out? What's going on?
We're not typical here.
Yeah, that's for sure. Not with a pastor like Randy.
I know.
I mean, Pastor.
Pray for them.
Should I call him Pastor Randy, maybe?
Yeah.
I kept calling Matt Crane Pastor Crane, and I kept calling John just John, just to mess with him. Anyway, I keep joking, man. This is good. You guys are a blessing. All right, are we good?
I think so.
That's good. We're 15 after 12. I think.
Thank you,
That's
brother.
good. Yes, sir.
Yeah.